Hello, and welcome to Unfiltered Reflections. I'm your host, Passion. Today, we're exploring a topic that affects us all, whether we realize it or not: weaponized incompetence. It's a phrase that might sound a little dramatic, but trust me, the reality is often far more insidious than you might think. In a world that values competence, and rightly so, there's a darker side that's been creeping in. A strategy, a tactic that undermines progress, productivity, and even our well-being. We're talking about the deliberate use of feigned or exaggerated incompetence as a weapon. Think about it. Have you ever worked with someone who consistently forgets important details? Someone who seems utterly incapable of following through, or who always manages to misunderstand instructions? Or perhaps someone who deliberately avoids taking on tasks to the point where it becomes a pattern? That, my friends, is often weaponized incompetence in action. And today we're going to unmask its tactics, explore its impact, and discuss how to fight back. So what exactly is weaponized incompetence? Well, at its core, it's the intentional use of pretending to be less capable, less knowledgeable, or less skilled than one actually is, to achieve a personal goal or to avoid responsibility. It's a manipulation tactic, plain and simple, and the motives behind it can vary widely. Sometimes it's about deflecting blame, avoiding work, or getting out of uncomfortable situations. Other times, it's about gaining sympathy, controlling others, or even sabotaging the efforts of others. The key thing to remember is this: it's intentional. It's not about genuine mistakes or a lack of ability. It's a conscious choice to appear incompetent. The ways weaponized incompetence manifests can be subtle or incredibly obvious. You might see it in intentional mistakes, consistently making errors, even when the task is simple. Selective forgetfulness, forgetting important deadlines, meetings, or instructions. Purposeful lack of effort, putting in the bare minimum, or deliberately doing a poor job. Playing the victim, complaining about being overwhelmed or incapable of handling a task. Misunderstanding instructions, repeatedly claiming to not understand what's being asked, even after multiple explanations. Procrastination to an extreme, delaying tasks until the last possible moment, or missing deadlines altogether. Blaming others, shifting responsibility for mistakes onto colleagues or circumstances. These behaviors, when used strategically, can be incredibly damaging. Now, let's talk about the impact of weaponized incompetence. This isn't just a minor inconvenience, it has serious consequences, especially when it becomes a pattern. One of the most significant impacts is that it can stifle innovation. Imagine a team meeting where someone constantly downplays ideas or claims not to understand new concepts. This can discourage others from sharing their expertise or proposing alternative solutions. The result? Creativity suffers, and the development of groundbreaking ideas is hindered. Weaponized incompetence can create an atmosphere of fear where people are afraid to speak up or to challenge the status quo. This is the opposite of what you need for innovation to thrive. Secondly, weaponized incompetence can undermine team dynamics. Within any team or organization, collaboration is essential, but when individuals strategically avoid responsibility or fail to fulfill their obligations, it puts an undue burden on others. This leads to strained relationships, decreased morale, and a significant drop in net productivity. Think about it. If you're constantly picking up the slack for someone who's feigning incompetence, you're going to feel resentful and burned out. This can create a toxic work environment where people are less likely to help each other and more likely to focus on protecting themselves. The third major impact is that weaponized incompetence impairs decision-making. Incompetence can be used as a tool to manipulate decision-making processes. By intentionally feigning ignorance or confusion, individuals can sway outcomes in their favor or deflect accountability for unfavorable choices. Imagine a manager who claims not to understand the financial implications of a project, even though they've been presented with all the necessary information. This can lead to suboptimal decisions and potentially long-term consequences for the organization. It can also be used to avoid taking responsibility for bad decisions. If something goes wrong, the person can simply claim they didn't understand the risks or that they were misinformed. So we've seen what weaponized incompetence is and the damage it can cause. But what can we do about it? How can we combat this insidious tactic? Fortunately, there are strategies we can employ. It's not always easy, but it's possible to create environments where weaponized incompetence is less likely to take root. Let's look at some key approaches. First, and perhaps most importantly, we need to cultivate a culture of accountability. This means establishing clear expectations, promoting transparency, and holding individuals accountable for their actions. When people know they will be held responsible, they're less likely to engage in manipulative behaviors. This starts with clear job descriptions and performance reviews. It also means being willing to address problems directly and to provide constructive feedback when needed. Accountability isn't about punishment. It's about creating a culture where people take ownership of their work and are committed to achieving results. Secondly, we need to foster communication and collaboration. Open and effective communication is key to identifying and addressing instances of weaponized incompetence. We need to encourage team members to voice concerns and to provide constructive feedback. This means creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up without fear of retaliation. It also means actively listening to each other and valuing different perspectives. Encourage team meetings where everyone has a chance to share their ideas and to ask questions, and make sure that communication channels are open and accessible to everyone. Third, we should promote skill development. Invest in training and skill development programs to empower individuals and enhance their capabilities. When people feel confident in their abilities, they're less likely to resort to feigning incompetence. This could involve offering workshops, online courses, or mentorship programs. The goal is to equip people with the skills they need to succeed and to provide them with opportunities for growth. This also means recognizing and rewarding competence, celebrate successes, and acknowledge the contributions of individuals who are doing great work. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we must lead by example. Leaders play a vital role in combating weaponized incompetence. By setting a strong example of competence, integrity, and ethical behavior, leaders can inspire their teams to follow suit. This means being reliable, taking responsibility for your own actions, and being willing to admit when you make a mistake. It also means being transparent and communicating openly with your team. When leaders demonstrate competence and integrity, they create an environment where weaponized incompetence finds no fertile ground. So to recap, combating weaponized incompetence requires a multifaceted approach. We need to cultivate a culture of accountability, foster communication and collaboration, promote skill development, lead by example. These strategies, when implemented consistently, can create environments that promote transparency, accountability, and collaboration. And that's where genuine competence can thrive. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on the bigger picture. Why is it so important to address weaponized incompetence? Because it undermines the very foundations of progress and healthy relationships. It erodes trust, stifles innovation, and ultimately prevents us from reaching our full potential. In the face of weaponized incompetence, it's crucial to remember that competence and expertise should never be undervalued or overlooked. We need to recognize the tactics used and take steps to counteract them. We need to support those who are genuinely competent and to create opportunities for others to develop their skills. We need to reward effort and to hold people accountable for their actions. And most importantly, we need to stand together against manipulation and deceit. Let's embrace a future where genuine competence and collaboration thrive. Let's build stronger teams, organizations, and communities that are resilient, successful, and driven by the pursuit of excellence. Remember, the key to overcoming weaponized incompetence lies in our collective commitment to transparency, accountability, and continuous growth. Together, we can create a world where incompetence is not weaponized, but rather transformed into an opportunity for learning, improvement, and success. So, let us embrace competence, reject manipulation, and forge a path towards a brighter future. A future where the true potential of individuals and organizations can flourish, unhindered by the tactics of weaponized incompetence. This is a call to action, to recognize this tactic for what it is, and to work towards a culture that values competence, integrity, and growth. It's about creating a space where people feel empowered to take ownership, to contribute their best work, and to support each other. It's about building trust, fostering collaboration, and celebrating success. And it's about creating a world where true competence shines through. Now I want to leave you with a few final thoughts, some practical steps you can take to address weaponized incompetence in your own life or in your workplace. Identify the pattern. Pay attention to the behavior of others. Is there a consistent pattern of incompetence or avoidance of responsibility? Document the behavior. Keep a record of specific instances of weaponized incompetence. This can be helpful when addressing the issue with the individual or with management. Address the issue directly. If you feel comfortable and if the situation warrants it, speak to the individual directly. Explain how their behavior is impacting you or the team. Be specific and provide examples. Set clear expectations. Make sure everyone understands their responsibilities and the standards that are expected of them. Provide support and training. Offer opportunities for skill development and provide support to those who are struggling. Escalate the issue if necessary. If the behavior persists and is having a negative impact on the team or the organization, report it to your manager or HR. Focus on solutions. Instead of dwelling on the problem, focus on finding solutions. What steps can be taken to improve the situation? Lead by example. Demonstrate competence, integrity, and accountability in your own work. These steps won't always be easy, but they are essential for creating a healthier, more productive, and more positive environment. Remember, you don't have to tolerate weaponized incompetence. You have the right to expect competence and to work in an environment where people are held accountable for their actions. Don't be afraid to speak up, to set boundaries, and to advocate for yourself and for your team. Your well-being and the success of your work depend on it. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Unfiltered Reflections. I hope this discussion has been helpful and that you'll feel empowered to address weaponized incompetence in your own life. Remember, you are not alone. This is a widespread issue, and there are strategies you can use to combat it. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep striving for a more competent and more authentic world. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to create even better content. And as always, feel free to share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Unfiltered Reflections.